report comes out, Mark Stein has a report that the Wizards have emerged as a serious suitor for him, and that there have been some discussions, including a trade package revolving around CJ McCollum's expiring deal. And to me, it feels like if I had to put money on it, I would say Trae Young is going to be a Washington Wizard at the deadline. That might sound insane. You might be wondering, okay, well, why would that happen for either side? I actually think it makes a bit of sense. The Wizards have this really intriguing young core. Alex Sarr is starting to break out. He's been so good this season, and not enough people are talking about him. Keyshawn George has emerged as this super intriguing wing on both sides of the ball that I think has real star upside. You've got Trey Johnson as one of the better shooters I can remember in Wizards history. I do still think there's something there with like a Bilal Coulibaly, even if I'm not quite as high on him as I was going into the draft and in his first couple of seasons. Like Bob Carrington has been showing some more flashes. There is some intriguing aspects to this Wizards young core. But if you bring in a guy like Trae Young, I think he can immediately elevate all of those guys. And he fits a need. They do not have a playmaker by any means. Love is not that playmaking point guard. Trey Johnson is a scorer. Keyshawn has some of that at the wing position, but he's not like a supernatural, spray to guys in the corners, get downhill and attack type of playmaker. Trae Young is that. Trae Young can operate the pick and roll with an Alex Sarr. Pick and pop. He can create opportunities for everybody. Hit Trey Johnson at like the logo for threes. I think there is a lot to like about the offensive upside of adding Trae Young to this team. And it feels like a pretty low-risk maneuver for the Wizards because Trae, again, he's expiring this summer, but I would imagine if he's dealt here, it's probably a spot where he's okay with being, and he could go ahead and pick up his player option, and you get like this year-and-a-half-long window for Trae and the Wizards to evaluate, is this a partnership that's going to work? And if it doesn't, then you just go ahead and cut ties, and maybe you drafted like a Darren Peterson in this year's draft, who you were able to then develop into your actual point guard in the future, or you go ahead and find somebody else, maybe Bud Carrington works out. Like, there are still a lot of ways the Wizards can maneuver if Trae Young doesn't work out in the nation's capital. And for Trae, it's like, hey, you can try and uplift this young core, get a fresh new start, not that far from Atlanta. And again, if it doesn't work out, you can leave pretty quick, no questions asked. As for the Hawks, the money works pretty perfectly if the deal is CJ McCollum, Corey Kispert, Cam Whitmore, and then like a pick or two. And I think that feels like a pretty realistic outcome in terms of return. It's not going to give you Alex Sarr or one of those top-tier Wizards prospects. If you're a Hawks fan looking for that, it's just not going to be the case. But I do think that's a fine return. CJ, you could maybe re-up a much smaller deal this summer after it expires, or if you just let him walk, $30 million off the books from him and from Kristaps Porzingis, suddenly you're talking about the $60 million opening up financially where you could make big maneuvers. You could build out this roster around Jalen Johnson. You could maybe go ahead and hunt a star and just absorb a lot of salary, not having to give up some of your core pieces. There's a lot to like about that potential financial flexibility for Atlanta. I could also see a world where there's a three-teamer here with Anthony Davis going to the Hawks, something that's been very heavily rumored, Trae Young going to the Wizards, and then assets from the Wizards going out to those other teams. Like maybe a Sachet is involved for Atlanta, maybe Porzingis' buddy's thrown in there somewhere as well. Like there are a lot of potential permutations of this deal. It sounds like Washington is the most likely outcome. As for other situations, there was that video of Scotty Barnes and Trae Young talking a little bit a couple of days ago. So I think Toronto makes some sense. You bring in Trae Young as a playmaker. I think they could use that type of offensive guy. He's going to have to learn to play off ball because he can't be on ball all the time. But that's really anywhere that he goes. But I do think they could use a little bit of his offensive creation, playmaking juice on the Raptors. Maybe it's Emmanuel Quickly. Maybe it's RJ Barrett. I don't know. One of those guys making a good bit of money there. If Atlanta doesn't mind taking back some longer-term salary, maybe the Minnesota Timberwolves still try to get involved. They could really use a point guard. They need a playmaker of some kind. It's going to be hard to make the money work there. I think they'd have to pull off a three-teamer of some way to not go ahead and gut their entire roster. So if they feel a little bit less realistic, I think it's more realistic that it is the Raptors or more so the Wizards, or even maybe there is still a world where it is just a straight-up Anthony Davis for Trae Young swap between the Mavericks and the Atlanta Hawks, one that's been kind of rumored, but also it's like, do the Mavericks really want Trae Young with Kyrie Irving's return seemingly on the horizon, if not this season, then at the beginning of next year? If you want some wild card teams, I mean, could the Bucks pull off a desperation trade? It would have to be Kuzma, Bobby Portis, and then like an Amir Coffey. I think if throwing a 2031 pick swap and a 2032 unprotected first-round pick, which from the Bucks, even if Giannis stays and he's in his late 30s, but he's probably more likely gone, like that's a super intriguing asset. I don't think it's as intriguing as the offers that a lot of other teams could throw you, so I really don't see it happening. But I don't know, maybe Trae is just like, yeah, I'll go play with Giannis. Like that sounds good to me. And then if Giannis gets dealt or just kind of wants out in general, general, I believe within the next year or so, maybe Trey's down with that. Could the Clippers try to pull off something insane and put together a Trae Young, James Harden backcourt next to Kawhi Leonard and really bring some offensive juice? I mean, they've been underwhelming defensively this season, so probably not the best idea. But again, if we're talking desperation teams like the Bucks and Clippers, I think both kind of fall into that moniker. I don't think, like, the Warriors would get involved with Jonathan Kuminga. I just don't think the Hawks would really want to go for him. He doesn't make sense with Jalen Johnson. They have to pay him a bunch of long-term money. I don't really see that being the case. Like the Blazers, they have Dame coming back next season, but at least for now, could they go for a point guard? Like, there is some salary they could throw the Hawks' way. Scoot is uncertain. He hasn't played at all this season. I don't know, just a few other teams to throw out there. The Rockets, I don't imagine, would do this deal because Fred VanVleet sounds like he could come back by the end of the season, and even with Fred VanVleet hurt, they've still been really good so far this year when he comes back. I think he provides a little bit of what they're looking for much cheaper than they'd have to pay Trae Young, and they don't have to go ahead and acquire him. I don't know. There's a lot of moving parts with this, but it seems like it's going to happen at some point here soon. I mean, we're only a month away from the trade deadline. It's crazy how quickly this has creeped up. If I had to guess, this is one of those moves that doesn't happen before the end of January, beginning of February. I don't think it'll be like a day of the deadline move. To me, it kind of feels like the whole De'Aaron Fox San Antonio Spurs thing, where we know De'Aaron Fox is going to get traded, a top suitor emerges in the San Antonio Spurs, and then it just takes, like within 3 days of the deadline for the deal to finally get done, that all the other options, third teams, fourth teams, things like that are kind of explored, because obviously Chicago did become involved in that trade with Zach LaVine going to Sacramento. So maybe we see something like that. But all in all, we know Trae Young trade is coming, which is exciting. Like, we've got no trade so far, which is kind of surprising that nothing has happened up until this point, not even like a super minor deal. But the big one, or at least one of the big ones, is on the way. We could see more chaos with AD involved. Could Giannis still potentially be on the market? Feels kind of unlikely this season, more so in the summer. But I think this deadline has a lot to it, a lot to be excited about. And Trae Young seemingly is going to be one of the first dominoes to fall. But yeah, those are my thoughts on the Trae Young stuff, the situation, the teams potentially involved, the return that they could get. Let me know down below in the comments, especially if you're a Hawks fan. How do you feel about this? It's obviously Trae Young has been their franchise guy for years, took them to that conference finals in 2021. Like, he's been a guy here in Atlanta for some time. How do you feel about it? What return are you looking for? Where would you want to see Trae Young play? If you are not a Hawks fan, do you want Trae Young on your favorite team? Just what do you think about the situation? Where do you think it's going to go? Things like that. Let me know down below in the comments your thoughts. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on future videos. I appreciate y'all. I'll see y'all later. Everyone
set to start it. And off we go from the Superdome. They'll elect to bring it out here from the end zone. He's across the 20 to the 21. That's where the drive will begin.
It's 126 starts on NBA Today. I'm George Sedano in for Malika Andrews. Today marks 1 month until the trade deadline. And, of course, what better way to start than looking around at the league and some of the biggest questions facing some of the teams. There's no bigger question facing a team than Giannis Antetokounmpo be a Buck after February 5th. And, look, the reality is this, Bert. We'll start with you.
At the 21. It's first and 10.
You see Giannis there. He looks good. He's looked good recently. But the Bucks are currently just outside the play-in and won 4 of their last 5 games, with Giannis averaging over 30 points per game. So, Perk, who's lucky still have Giannis after the trade deadline this season?
George, I think I was wrong. I said at the beginning of the season that Giannis would be in another uniform, but I think the Bucks are just holding on for dear life, and I understand it. We're talking about a generational talent, but what I will say is I expect the Bucks to be aggressive in the trade deadline to move and try to make a splash, right? When you think about Giannis Antetokounmpo, he's 1 of 1. The fact that he's playing with the passion that he always played with, I believe that Giannis just feels like he has a chance against anybody, but I believe the Bucks will do and make some moves at the trade deadline to try to move and get some pieces around Giannis so that they can have a shot to be a playoff type team in the Eastern Conference.
All right, Big Mark, let's go to Trae Young next. Over his 8 seasons in Atlanta, he's averaged 25 points, almost 10 assists per game. but he's wasn't offered a contract extension prior to the season. The Hawks All-Star just 27 games this season. Atlanta has been 15-12 without Young in the lineup. Let's start with you, Hall of Famer Mark Spears. How's Trae Young handling the upcoming trades?
I hear he's trying to be really careful about this. You know, this is a guy who saw Kevin Durant leave Oklahoma City as a kid and saw how that was, and he wants to continue, whether he's there or gone, to have a connection with Atlanta. So I don't think he's asking for a trade, but I don't think he's telling not to trade him. I'm hearing he's open-minded to being. You know, he and Porzingis still haven't really played much together. We don't really know what that looks like. But without an extension, with Trae seem to be blamed for a lot of the things, fair or unfair, I do think he certainly will be open-minded to a new uniform.
Right. Next up, Anthony Davis. Davis only played 18 games this season, but he's been on the court. He's averaging 20 and 10 per game. Davis has another year on his current contract, plus a player option, and his desire for a, quote, pricey extension might have him out in doubt. So, Tina, who better to go to here? Amigo, what's the deal with Davis?
Howdy, Georgie. AD's preference would be to stay in Dallas and to get that extension this summer. Now, does that make sense for a team trying to build around a teenage prodigy? I think the beginning of that question I'm drilling. As far as the outlook, look, the Mavericks are trying to generate a good spending market for Anthony Davis. That is difficult because of the durability issues, and I think more so the dollars. And in a situation like this, Rich Paul is going to be involved. They are going to want AD trade somewhere that is willing to give him a long, lucrative extension. And I just think mid-season it's going to be very difficult for Dallas to make all those pieces fit.
All right, finally, Jonathan Kuminga and the Warriors. Kuminga has not played since December 18th. He was supposed to be in the lineup, but the Warriors rested their stars against the Thunder last Friday, but was a late scratch with back soreness. Kuminga signed an extension this offseason, but will be eligible to be traded on February 15th. So, Ramona, what are you hearing about Kuminga?
Look, this needs to end. That game where he was supposed to play, and then there was a late scratch with back soreness. Now, Mark Spears has been telling us all morning that he saw Jonathan Kuminga and he was sick that day. I don't know why they didn't just say he was also sick. Jimmy Butler was out with a sickness that day, but that was a golden opportunity for him to play. If you've been sitting on the bench, you're out of the rotation, he had a chunk of minutes in front of him. And my jaw dropped when I saw Anthony Slater tweet that he was not going to play and then even a late scratch there. This feels like it could get ugly if they don't resolve it pretty quickly. And he's eligible to be traded January 15th. There's one team that keeps coming up, and that's the Sacramento Kings. I don't know what they're going to get in return for him at this point, but they got to move on.
You know, Scott Perry was, I think, very brilliant to have spent an hour and a half with Kuminga in Miami. So while all these other teams are very looking at Kuminga in a mysterious way, he got time with him. The Kings still love him. That first-round pick is off the table, but they're communicating, as Ramona said, with the Warriors. And but who is it that they'll get? You know, Keegan Murray, Reynald, some of the younger guys, they're off the table. But the Kings definitely want a youth movement and will love to have Kuminga in it. And I think Kuminga, the one thing is, you got to remember how many people are excited to go to Sacramento. He packed his bags up and drive up I-80 going north right now if they let him.
I mean, I know he and Jimmy Butler are friends. You know, Jimmy Butler went on the record and said he had his back and he supports him. We'll still be friends no matter what happens. But like when Jimmy Butler sat out last year and he had the Michigas with Miami, it was one thing. Jimmy Butler took them to the finals. Jimmy Butler is established in this league. I don't know if I've seen a player in this category who hasn't really proven himself be at that level yet to take an attack like this.
Looks up, had himself a night last night. You'll see here. We'll start off late in the third. The Thunder leading by 4. SGA gets the off-balance shot to fall there.
Load it up. It's a historic program, and they take it to the next level. You got this. How hard are you willing to push yourself? Welcome to P90X Generation Next. Are you ready?
Then under 2 minutes to go in the quarter. Thunder now trailing by 1 as Jay gets crafty on this one. Next possession, Phoenix. Goody. Drills a 3.
Saw a lot of that last night. Jordan Goodwin, scrappy kickoff, taking an impact.
Career high 8 threes for him. Under 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter. OKC up 2. Dylan Brooks. He gets in the act with a sidestep 2. Long 2 there. Game tied at 100. 30 seconds to go in the fourth. Thunder down 4. SGA. His shot is short, but Chet, there to clean it up.
I like Che, man.
A pronunciation.
Yeah.
Phoenix possession here. Brooks will step out of bounds. OKC ball, 23 seconds to go, down 2. 12 seconds. J-Dub on the drive.
Back home.
Gets the jumper.